What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the I'm Not Lucky, I'm Blessed podcast, the show where we celebrate young entrepreneurs and their achievements, and then we teach up and coming entrepreneurs how to make profit using their passion. And as usual, I'm your host, Lucky the Most. Enjoy the show. Episode 80, pretty special one. I have a special guest in the building, a great friend of mine. Her name is Vanessa. She was a lady that inspired one of the podcasts that I had the other day. I was in a van with her and we were I was getting to know her business. And along the line, I discovered that this lady has an amazing, you know, business that a lot of us are not aware of. Even as the black community, we have no clue. Immigrants, we have no clue what we are entitled to, being in this country, being alive. So Vanessa is here to talk about our business and tell us the importance of that business and how we can, be part of it. And if you're someone that is listening to, like, you're listening to this podcast and you feel that this is a field you want to go into, you can 100% reach out to Vanessa to hook you up. Okay. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for the one and only Vanessa.
Thank you, Lucky. Thank you, Lucky.
How you doing, Vanessa?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I've never done a podcast on a Tuesday evening before.
Oh, wow. What do you
Yes.
usually do?
Friday.
Oh, okay.
No, Saturdays.
Okay.
Saturdays in the middle of a day. But you're special. You're traveling on Saturday.
Yes.
And I'm like, if I don't do this, man, I don't think it's.
I know. I'm always like going back and
Going
forth and
back,
everything. So,
yeah,
but I'm happy to be here. You asked me, so without a shadow of a doubt, I was like, my bro, my friend, like,
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for coming on the podcast. Yes. So can you introduce yourself to the
Yeah. So, out in the field, I would say my name is Dr. Vanessa Nicholson. I have been in the field of public health since I was 19. So this is going about 13 years because I'm 34 years old right now. And basically, I'm what is considered to be a public health doctor. So I have a bachelor's, but I also have a master's in public health, and I have a DRPH in public health. Now, not many people are as familiar with the DRPH as opposed to a PhD. So how I like to explain the difference between the two, a PhD is more so a person that heavily relies on research and they focus on the theory to explain how things are the way they are.
Yeah.
Whereas a DRPH, I am considered in the field to be a public health doctor.
Gotcha.
So the difference between, let's say, a public health doctor and a medical doctor focuses on the illnesses of an individual, whereas the public health doctor focuses on the wellness of the mass population, right? And so by being a public health doctor, I mainly focus on preventative medicine rather than medicine that is a reaction to a symptom that an individual is having. So, if there's any sort of phenomenon, let's say, for example, with the COVID-19 epidemic, that didn't just affect one person, but it affect masses of people.
Yeah.
So that's when, people in my field, we come in and then we basically assess who's being affected, who's inequitably being affected or more than others. Why is this the case? And then once we find out that, then we're able to develop solutions to help those that are most vulnerable and those that are most in need.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So how did you end up in this field?
Well, so
Childhood dream, whatever.
I was about to say, I'll try to give you the short version as possible. Actually, once I graduated with my bachelor's, I knew nothing about public health.
Yeah.
I actually, my bachelor's, I have two. So I graduated from an international business program at Mississippi State, and I focused on business management and Spanish.
Wow.
And then afterwards, being a person that was still in Mississippi, there was like no opportunity at the time. This was 2009 when I graduated. So this was right around where a recession was happening. So when it came to just looking for jobs in my field, which was business, I really couldn't find much. And so I said, let me go ahead and go back to the drawing board. And I decided to go and get my master's. But I didn't exactly know what I wanted to go into. And so then I literally just typed on Google. You have to remember I was like 20, 21, 22 at the time. So I literally went on Google and I said, what are some majors that people go in to help people help themselves? And so public health came up. And so when public health came up, I went to an HBCU. So for those of you all that don't know, an HBCU stands for Historically Black college or university. So I went to Jackson State, got my master's in public health there. And at the time, my thinking was I don't want to totally remove myself from business. So I went into health policy management because at the time, what I wanted to be was a healthcare administrator. So healthcare administration, it basically links public health, healthcare delivery with the business side of things. So after that, I said, wow, I really like public health, so let me go ahead and get this doctorate. So I applied for 2 programs. One was in Houston, University of Texas, which I got into, and the other was some university I can't remember, but it was out in New York. I didn't get into it. They rejected me before before the deadline even ended. But I got into UT. I only applied to 2. Most people, they apply to like 6 or 7 just to ensure that they get in somewhere. But I only applied to, the only other university I applied to was UT, and I got it.
Nice.
And so I majored in management, policy, and community health practice while I was there. So that's where I received my doctorate. And so that's when I got introduced to fields including epidemiology, environmental health, and really what I saw was a pattern of the types of people that were negatively impacted more so than others. And so then that's when I started to get into understanding the importance of equity when it came to people that look like you and me, when it came to people of color in general, or someone who just historically belongs to, someone who has in the past has been historically been a part of a marginalized community. And it really got me into policy and got me into really understanding why things are the way they are. I would say on a societal scale, there are a lot of things that are quote unquote against me, being Black, being female, being from the South, being used to being overlooked, right? And so I just thought that I don't care how, things have been, today's a new day.
Yes.
And so that is in combination how I came into the field that I work in now, which is Black maternal health.
Gotcha.
And I don't know if you know what's going on in the United States today, but compared to our other peer nations, we have an abnormally I would say undesirable outcomes when it comes to maternal health in general for all women. So regardless of their age, regardless of their race or anything like that. But then it's even worse when it comes to women of color, of childbearing age, and even worse than that when it comes to Black women. Yeah. And so the phenomenon that we're discovering is that, certain providers' biases, whether known or unknown, may come into play, and that may negatively impact the way they deliver care to their patients who may not look like them. Yeah. So that's how I kind of got into my business today. And when I say we just had our conversation on Sunday, I just literally started my business maybe a month ago. So I'm still in very fresh. So still in the workings of that. But the business is called Milprint. And basically, it focuses on health.
Print, right?
Milprint. Yeah. So MILPRIN.
What is it? Like a regular mill, or does that stand for something?
Well, it stands. It's the combination of my 2 grandfathers' names. Oh, nobody actually asked that question. So my maternal grandfather, his name was Milton, and then my paternal grandfather, his name was Prince. So I put the 2 together, Milprint.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So I put it together. Nobody's actually ever asked that, so I don't know. That put a smile on my face when you asked that question. I know, right? You got me.
Because why I asked that question was it sounded really special.
Yeah.
And it just something behind that name. You get it. She wouldn't just randomly because people use names that they've seen.
Right.
But if it's something that it's not something you hear every day, it means that it's coming from somewhere,
Right.
So it's good to,
Right.
Well, shout out to you, man.
Yeah.
Show love to your both grandparents.
Yes.
It means they played a huge role in your life.
They did. Absolutely. They were 2 very strong men, led their families, did right by their wives, their children. And I can honestly say, had it not been for the effort of those 2 men, I would not be here today. And I wouldn't be as bold and vocal, which is what you need in equity when you're advocating for people who need, healthcare, and not just healthcare that is just thrown at them, but healthcare that specifically focuses on their needs. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention, but meal print is something that I do, as more so of my passionate side. Not to say that what I do for my job is not passionate and everything, because honestly they both intertwine. I would just say that they're different parts of me. So meal print is my upcoming business that I do on the side, but also by profession on an everyday basis, I'm an assistant professor at Tufts University School of Medicine.
Gotcha.
And the reason why I emphasize that is because a lot of times people hear professor, they hear medicine, and so they automatically think they automatically think medical doctor.
Yeah.
But I always, emphasize I'm not a medical doctor, I'm a public health doctor.
Yeah.
But the reason why my position is important, because I basically educate those who are going to be upcoming medical students, or they're already medical students, but they're going to be upcoming medical doctors, doulas, midwives, and basically I educate them on being aware of their biases, so that by the time they become practitioners and while they're still in training, they know how to better take care of individuals who may not look like them, may not necessarily share their same backgrounds, compared to those who have came before them, because we're always trying to improve health, but so much of the responsibility has been given to the patient, which that is important. But it also needs to be a shared responsibility. So not just on the patient or the person who's receiving the care, but it also needs to be, focused on those who are delivering care and those who are educating those who are delivering care. It's all it should be a collaboration of efforts.
Everything. Yeah. Oh, that's dope. That's dope. So you sound like, so at first, one thing I love about you is it always starts with not knowing. You get it, right?
Right.
Like how you started the journey. You said, you were done with school and decided to go online and Google and say.
It was so simple.
Just type because you
I would love to give you like this, like really sound good sort of explanation, but I literally was like, let me go to Google.
I'm gonna go and just look for but like now the knowledge you have acquired in this field is very interesting, because I'm listening to you say all these numbers and I'm like, wow, that's a lot. I have no clue what most of the things you're talking about, but like, how did you get to this point where like you're so knowledgeable about what you do, being good in your field? Like, how does someone listening right there and say, I want to do what she's doing right now, work in public health, but I have no clue. Like, how can one get better and grow in a field like this?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. So I'll go ahead and say what has worked for me.
Yeah.
What has worked for me, one has been prayer. But in addition to prayer, because a lot of times people get it mixed up. They think, oh, okay, I'll pray, but you have to be actively engaging for the things that you want, right? So I would say, in addition to prayer, following your instinct, right? When I first started off in public health, because my area is so specific, focused on health equity and inequity now, most people think that I started off like that. Actually, no. I actually started off in various fields. I've worked at health institutes. I've worked at health departments. I first initially got my start in HIV/AIDS research. And so with those varying exposures, I would say, it was good for me because I found a common problem, which was no matter what health outcome you focused on, it was a certain particular group of people that were always more negatively impacted or faced disparities more than others. So whether it was obesity and nutrition, or HIV or maternal health, I always saw that there was a particular group of people, usually people of color, usually people who don't have health insurance, usually those who are health illiterate, because a lot of times, and even today, when we educate those upcoming professionals, we don't really talk about health illiteracy. We don't really talk about health literacy. So people are like, okay, what does that mean? Just understanding the basic rights that you have as an individual, understanding what is out there, what is free, how do you have access to services. And to some extent, it has been by design for certain groups of people to not be aware of, certain services that are available to them, right? Because we know they vary by location, depending on the hospital they go to. It can vary by state. It can vary by region, right? And so for me, I would definitely say following my instinct, paying attention to what I felt was right. Because I've always had, and that comes back from to my grandfathers. They have always had a sense of, no matter how negatively they were treated, they always had a sense of pride within themselves.
Yeah.
And so they had this idea that no matter how they may have encountered racism, discrimination, etc., they were just as deserving to have proper health care
Like
as the next person.
That's the next person.
So that has always been my sort of guiding light. But I have made it to be my journey.
Now to help
other people. Right. So honestly, I just followed my gut. I mean, like, literally, there's a book actually by T.D. Jakes. I would encourage those of you all who have not heard of this book to read it. It's called Instinct. And the reason why I love the book is that he really talks about following your instinct and how your instinct just guides you in understanding, okay, what to say yes to, what to say no to. Sometimes you may not necessarily know why that gut feeling is saying yes or no, but when you look at it in hindsight, you understand, why that is so. And if we look at T.D. Jakes, one thing about him that I really love is that he's a multifaceted guy.
Yes.
He's not just a preacher, but he's a businessman. He's a movie producer. He's an author, right?
He's a father.
Exactly. All of these things, right? And so he talks about instinct. So I would definitely say self-help books. And like, if y'all don't know, like, this dude right here, he loves self-help books. And I think that's like the one thing that I just really admire him as a friend and as a brother, because you have to be guarded on who you allow in your space and who you just observe, right? Like the fact that you are always looking to self-improve, that's something that, you didn't even have to say it, but it was just like by observation, that I saw that. And so, all of that is a part of instinct, right? It's not a coincidence that we're here on, your couch talking about, I'm not looking, I'm blessed, this podcast, right? So it was instinctual that we had the conversation the other day. It was instinctual that, you were like, okay, well, why don't you come and talk on my podcast? And I was like, well, okay, because it just feels right.
It just feels right, yeah.
Exactly.
And now I'm smiling here because you just move this friendship to a whole other level by saying you admire Bishop T.D. Jakes, because that is someone that I admire so much in my life.
Yes.
Okay, I'll give you a quick story.
Okay.
How did I come to know Bishop T.D. Jakes? Like, there was a point in my life where I was listening to T.D. Jakes every day, like literally morning to evening.
Yeah.
I can't like stop listening now, or else when I was driving the church van, after church, I would play Bishop T.D. Jakes and just drive and drop my.
Wow.
I read his book. I read 2 of his books, Soar and Pressure.
Okay.
Have you read Pressure?
I haven't read. I've read Crushing.
Yes, Crushing.
Yeah.
Yo, Crushing is so good.
It is.
I didn't know like the level of wisdom this guy used in writing that book that makes you want to turn pain.
Yes.
That pressure and pain to that it is for something good.
Yeah.
Damn it, man. I love that guy so much that sometimes, you wish some people would never go out of this world, just stay there and keep feeding you with information, with knowledge and wisdom from God. Like, that's how much I love Bishop T.D. Jakes. Like he got me hooked up on self-help. There was a point in my life, like 2016, 2018, when I just got out of school, and I made a lot of wrong choices, and I was stuck in a place that nothing was working out. And I just randomly came across Bishop T.D. Jakes on YouTube, and he was so real in his message. It was like a 5 minutes clip that was saying, like, I know what you're going through right now. You get right? I know there's no one to, motivate you. There's no one to encourage you. Job is not, he said all the negative things, but he's like, listen to my voice, okay? Just keep coming.
Right.
I got you. Like, at that moment, he did something that I wish my dad could do for me. You get right? Like, I wish I was that manly figure in my ears telling me that, hey, this is part of life.
Right,
Like
right.
this is not strange.
I
Like,
literally was just looking at like it was a YouTube video that he had, and I was feeling down about something. And this just goes to show you can continue to climb to the top and still experience pain, still experience depression. Like a lot of times people think like, oh, okay, I'm elevating, so I shouldn't feel this way. You're constantly growing, right? And so I had a time where I was feeling like down and depressed and everything, and you know, it was like one of the videos that I was watching, and he was like, sometimes it's not the devil. He was like, sometimes life is just doing what life does.
I know.
Right? And then like once you get that perspective, like,
you're like, okay.
Right. Because sometimes I think we as humans, we make the big mistake of, you know, feeling like, okay, we've made these bad choices. Nothing is going how I want it to go. So when is it going to be my time?
Yes.
But what I have recognized, you know, as I continue to grow into my womanhood, as I continue to grow into my faith, as I continue to grow into, you know, being a business owner, like that's so crazy that I can still say that out loud, like I'm actually owning my business.
Shout out to you.
Thank you. But like, you're still constantly growing, right?
Yes.
Sometimes like you can be experiencing pain just as you elevate. And I think that sometimes we forget that, and it's just like life is just doing what life does. It's always and what I was gonna sorry, I feel like I'm rambling, but
it's
like
okay,
going back to what I was saying about how life is doing what life does. Sometimes you just need to realize that it's not just your time when you're shining. Like a lot of times, you know, like let's say for instance, your business, I perceive it to be more successful than mine, and then I look at you and I'm like, man, I wish that my business can be like Lucky. When is it going to be my time? Yeah. It's always our time. Sometimes it's our time to shine. Yep. Sometimes it's our time to go through the fire. Sometimes it's our time to really be humbled and crushed. Exactly. So it's every season is your time. It's just your job to figure out what type of season you're in. And a lot of times you don't figure it out until actually you have the courage to go through whatever it is that you were called to go through, and you're like, okay, looking back on that in hindsight, that was my crushing season. Right.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
It was one of his favorite lines that till today like makes me like just I love so much. Bishop TDJ. He said your reward for your previous your previous challenge is your next challenge.
Yes.
Yeah. So you think you're done, you want a reward. What you get rewarded is your next stage in life. And it's like a video game. The next stage is even harder than the stage you just finished.
Yes.
But that's what you get.
Somebody had said the other day, they said the top of one mountain is the bottom of the next. And I was like, when you said that, I was like, yes.
That one's rude.
It's real.
For real. When you get on top of the mountain, you think like you're done.
Right.
Bro, you're just about to climb even higher.
Exactly. But then when you look back on your experience in life, something that you had such a fear about or you didn't think that you were able to accomplish, because you have been called to go so much higher, you can look back on that experience and you're like, what? I was afraid of that.
And now,
like, really?
Yes.
So, you know, that's what keeps me going. Like, anytime I feel down and sad and depressed, literally everything that I have in life now, I try to be so grateful for it. And I remind myself to be grateful for it because at one point in time, it was a dream.
It was a dream, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Everything. Yeah.
Like, even just me being able to, you know, get out of the South and get to the East Coast and get to Boston. That was a dream. You know, to be a doctor and for me to become a doctor. At one point in time, I can say that was a dream. To become a business owner, that was a dream. So everything is manifesting itself, you know, so we have to pay attention to the small blessings. And like I said, you know, I can sit here and I can definitely talk more about, you know, the business, I guess, as we continue the podcast and everything. But you know, I know that you use this podcast to really just, you know, share different perspectives so that other people can like really get some sort of inspiration. But please, like, take it from me, take it from Lucky. Like, the road to success is not straight.
It's not straight.
It is down, up, over, you know.
Sometimes you even like, you don't even know what you're like. You don't even know.
Right. You don't even know what to say in that season. Right.
Like,
It's just like, how do you feel? What's going on? And you're like,
bro,
today I just survived today.
Just survive.
Right.
Just survive.
And that's enough.
That's enough. Some days you don't have to, break bones, and some days surviving is just all you have to do. Some days.
Right. Right. It's all you have the energy for.
Yep, I agree with you.
Yeah.
You said something about. Oh, wait. Oh God, there's this. Oh, I missed it. Okay.
It'll come back.
It'll come back.
Yeah.
Man, but great conversation. I love where this is going. And feel free to go left, right.
Okay.
It's life.
Okay. Right. It's not exactly. We told you. Okay. So we go all over the place.
They get the message.
Right.
You get me, right? We're not just here to talk about, oh, business is good. Start your business. No,
right.
We're here to tell you the raw facts.
Right. And I mean, I'll go ahead and be honest. Like, even as a young person, like, I know a lot of times people are like, oh my gosh, like, you're a professor, you've made it. I've made it to this level, but at the same time, I'm still very early in my career, right? I definitely, I'm going to go ahead and proclaim it that I'll be, the best professor, in terms of health equity that I can be. But, this is a new process for me, in learning the business and learning how to run a business that focuses on inequity. We spoke about this in the car the other day in terms of figuring out how to market, how to let people know about your business. I'm still learning those things. Yes. So I don't even have everything cut out. It's just like even understanding all the services that, I would offer. I mean, I know the services that I have now, but, as life happens, there are going to be times where people are going to have different needs. And so those services are then going to need to be updated, right? Yes. So it's just so many things. So, remember we talked the other day, and one of the key words that I mentioned was capacity.
Capacity, yes. I was going to bring that up today. Yep.
Yes. So we talked about capacity, and, I'm just really hoping and praying that, as I grow, I continue to have the capacity for my business to grow, so that I can expand on the type of people that I'm serving. Yes. So, I'll go ahead and let you lead that conversation to where we can get more into capacity building and everything. But I thought that was a very powerful conversation.
And that would lead to my next question, since it's already a capacity. Like, what are ways that people can, in general, build that capacity to? Because some people don't really know that you are not where you should be because you haven't done the things you need to do to get to that level. Right. You get it, right? Like, literally, just one thing you have to do to get you to the next level. So, how can people build, it's a question for myself also, how can people build that capacity, to keep growing?
I would say, initially, when you asked that question, the first thing I thought of, you have to be dedicated to yourself. And you actually not even dedicated to yourself, because sometimes, when it comes to you and your emotions, you may operate on how you feel that day, right? But I would say definitely focus on, what you want to do. Like, what do you want your legacy to be? And stay loyal to that. And that's going to help you with consistency. That's going to be helpful. Well, first of all, it's going to help you to be motivated. And then, when the person's motivated, that they're able to, it's easier for them to consistently work at whatever goal that they have. I think a lot of times what we do as human beings, we make the mistake to look at someone else, and we think that someone else has that special spark or that special thing that they have. But honestly, some of the special things are very simple. Consistency. Integrity. Yeah. And let me tell you, and I'm saying this as a person that has a lot of education and a lot of degrees. My integrity in some instances have gotten me through the door more than my education ever has. Because your character speaks for itself. So I would definitely say a way for someone to develop their capacity. Have faith in your business. Have faith that you can do it. You are just as deserving to be successful as the next person. You have to have that belief. I always say that, and this is just my theory, right? And, those can, choose to disagree or not. But I really do feel as though fortune is not given to those who have the most money. Money is important, right? But fortune is really given to those who know themselves. If you truly know yourself, the money will come. If you know yourself, that means that you know your capabilities. You know whose energy that your energy increases around. You know whose energy your energy decreases around. And when you have an awareness, right, then you know who to stay away from or who to gravitate towards. One of the things that I try to do, not even as a business owner, but just as a person in general, I always try to make sure that I am not the smartest person in the room, because, and I always try to make sure that to a degree, I'm putting myself in uncomfortable situations. Because is it the most comfortable? No. But at the same time, it calls me to learn and to expand my wings. Like I'll use working out as an example, because I know you can, attest to this, right? So a lot of times we make the mistake of, okay, like I want this type of body, right? But just because you say you want this particular type of body or you want to be fit in this way doesn't mean that you're going to get it. What do you have to do? You have to work out. And then you can't just work out one time and then expect instant results.
Yes.
You have to be consistent. You have to go over and over and again. And then once you are consistent, you'll start to see the results that you have.
Yes.
But you can't rely on your friends, your loved ones, your friends to make you lift that weight.
Or even go to the gym.
Or even go to the gym, right? Yeah. And when you're lifting the weight, is it comfortable?
No.
Is it fun? Not really. No. But over time, getting the results, that's what's fun. Seeing your work pay off. Yes. That's what's fun. Yes. So just like, with that example of having to be consistent, that's anything in life. For any good thing that you want in life, you have to not just want it, but you have to be consistent in putting in the effort. Yeah. So, that's it. I hope I answer your question when it came to capacity.
Makes a lot of sense. I think that's the first is, like you said, knowing yourself. Mm-hmm. And knowing yourself is not just knowing your name. Right. Those are things that were given to you those are not you. Right. Those are my name is. But like who yourself is. Like I was listening to one by this guy, what's his name? Proctor, and I forgot his name, but like he's like, they asked him, so when you go to like seminars, what are you going there to? Are you going there to, know how to make money or anything? He's like, no, I'm going there to know myself. Right. Like, what am I capable of?
That's what life is all about.
If you can know yourself, he's like this biggest secret to success. Once you know yourself, you get it, right? Like deeply know yourself, not your name, what you love, your favorite. No, like if you deeply know yourself, you will be successful.
Right. And you can't be afraid to look at your flaws. Yeah. Like a lot of times people, what they'll do, and I mean, I have been guilty of this, so don't make it, I don't want to, I want to be very clear that I'm not making it seem like, oh, like I'm so wonderful and other people do this. No, I mean, everything that I'm talking about are things that I have had to, work through. Yes. And I have definitely made the mistake of, paying attention to everything that was good and then everything that I didn't like about myself, sweep it under the rug. Yeah. But then what happened was, if you sweep it under the rug, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. So, you know it. Right, and then you have to address it, and then it can be very, very overwhelming. So if you look at yourself and you say, okay, well, these are, you have to look at yourself like a business. These are the pros that I have. These are the cons that I have. Or like sometimes, and for those of you out there in business, I don't know if you've ever heard of the term SWOT analysis.
SWOT analysis, yes.
So that's
strength, weakness,
opportunities and threats. Right. Yeah. And so you basically have to look to yourself and think, okay, well, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are things that are not necessarily costing me now, but if I ignore them, they may be a threat to me later? What sort of opportunities? Meaning that these things are not in my possession now, but if I were to do XXX, I would be able to get that opportunity, right? Yes. So I think just really analyzing ourselves, but not analyzing ourselves too much, because you can't get into the process of overthinking, which is what I sometimes do, to where you get hesitant and you don't do anything, right? So you just have to not look at life as the entire staircase, because sometimes that can be intimidating, but putting one foot in front of the next, in front of the next, in front of the next, and then next thing you know, you look back and you're like, wow, I traveled a long way.
That's deep.
Yeah, so, yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
I blame the teacher inside of me. I try to use Please bring it up. To like.
No, they all make sense. And I trust my listeners. They get you too.
Okay.
Yeah, they get you too. And then something else you talked about, like being the not being the smartest person in the room. You get right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, any room you step into, try to make sure you're not the smartest person in the room. Makes a
Mm-hmm.
lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
But just to add to that, also make sure you're the hardest working person in the room.
Yes. Yes.
Go to a room where you're not the smartest, but make sure you're the hardest working person. Because that's the only way you would outsmart them.
Yes.
By
Yes.
working hard, it means like, for example, if like I love going to a gym where I'm the smallest guy,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to be the hardest worker in that room. And
Mm.
that's the only way. Few months, the biggest guy will come and say, "Wow, bro, you big, you
Right,
you get
right,
right."
right,
But
right,
when you first walk in, you look small, and you're like, "Okay, how do I get there?"
right.
I walk the biggest guy. But how do you do that? You have to learn from the big guy. But whatever he teaches you, you got to do it twice. You got to do
Mm-hmm.
it double. If he does one session, you got to do two sessions. But at the end of the day, because it's one thing to be in a smart room
Mm-hmm.
and to make use of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's another thing to be in a smart room and just be there.
Right,
That's
right,
why
and
some
just be
people
there. And
just be there.
sometimes you are called to just be
Be
there.
there.
Like, I was telling one of my mentees the other day, because she was just like, Dr. Nicholson, like you just seem like so amazing, and you're doing this, and you're doing this, and you're doing this, and how? And the answer that I gave her was this. I said, in some rooms, I'm called to be the leader.
Mm.
In other rooms, I'm called to be the follower.
Oh, yeah.
But in every room, I make sure that I'm always the asset.
Yes.
So,
Explain.
and I'll go ahead and elaborate. When you are called, and this is, well, okay, let me back up. Never despise the days of humble beginnings. And the reason why I say that is because I had a humble season in my life to where I felt like I was overlooked, I was underpaid, my phone was dry, nobody was calling, right? That's not this season right now. I'm always having someone call me, and I'm not complaining, right?
Yes.
But what I'm saying is I recognize that this is a busy season for me.
Yeah.
If I'm not, talking to friends and loved ones, I'm talking to mentees, I'm talking to students,
Yeah.
I'm talking to, those who are associated with my business. Like, my phone is always ringing, constantly off the hook. But the reason why I say don't despise the days of humble beginnings is because when you are in that humble stage, when you feel as though you're overlooked, you're actually being called to observe. Called to observe the people who are in positions where you want to be, and you see how they move. You take what you like about how they move, and you actually make a note in terms of like, once I get there, I will do this better, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I say, don't despise those days, because then when you're in a position where you are shining, you don't know who's your friend. You don't know who comes with pure intention. Everybody's calling you. You don't really, you have to be more intentional in making time for yourself. But when you're in that, in the days of humble beginnings, you have all the time in the world. And that goes out to people who feel like, oh, I went to school to get this degree, but I'm not really using it. Trust me. Eventually, you will begin to use it. Even if you don't use it, as long as you are a productive person, as long as you are willing to work, people will find work. I can't tell you how many times people have told me that they, went to school for one thing, and they're doing something totally different. And they don't have any regrets, because maybe what it is that by going into that major, it called you to be on a certain journey that you needed to inform you on how to do what you're doing today, right? So, like, for instance, my and I'll use my own self for an example. When I was getting my bachelor's, I was doing international business. I don't know how, I don't know why, because I'm a country girl. I've always been from a rural area, and so this love for international business, I don't know where it came from. At the same time, did I exactly use my major? No, I didn't. But what it called me to do was to be in environments with people who may not be from where I'm from people who may have a different way of life.
Yes.
And so those people then became my assets, and they're still my assets for what I'm doing today.
Gotcha.
You see what I'm saying?
Like, at first it didn't make any sense, but getting in an environment now and where you are, once you put two and two together, it's like, that was rooted or what?
Right,
Because
right.
you get to walk in their shoes now.
Exactly.
It's different from being outside. You were in the crowd.
Yeah.
And learning from.
Exactly. Like even when I had went to UT,
Yeah.
and I don't know, maybe I've told you this before. I told your fiance. I told somebody in the van. I remember, but you know, one of the things that I appreciated about going to UT is that even though that there were people who physically looked like me,
Yeah.
most of them were Nigerian.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
And so because I already had this sort of understanding from my major
Yeah.
to be, you know, to have a sense of cultural humility, sensitivity, being open, even if you're not familiar, just be open. You know, I carried that when I had went to school with Nigerians. And one thing I can say that I specifically appreciate about Nigerian culture, you know, I always tell my American friends, if you ever meet a Nigerian, they will not
say,
accept no.
No, yeah.
They will never say they can't do something,
yeah.
right? But like coming from my background, you know, and it's not to say that every African American feels this way, but there is, you know, when you just think about the trauma of slavery and how that has passed on from generation to generation, so many times, you know, we as a culture, we think to ourselves, oh, well, we may not be able to do this, and then it's like, you know, you have your friends and sometimes your family, because, you know, they just want the best for you. So they may, you know, tell you things like, oh, well, you know, well, why don't you major into something else? Or why don't you know, if you say you can't do it, well, maybe you just find a different route. And I'm like, not Nigerians.
No.
Nigerians, shut up. like, you
I like how you
feeling sorry for yourself.
I like how you came up with that. Oh, shut up.
Shut up. Why are you feeling sorry for yourself? Like, you can use that energy to do what you initially focus on doing.
Because you're already feeling sorry now.
Exactly. And so by hanging out with people that weren't from my same cultural background, I was like, wow, these people just have a certain confidence that I just have never seen.
Yeah.
And I was able to apply that confidence when I went for jobs, when I established my business, when I would advocate for people who I know couldn't speak for themselves.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So you just never, no experience that a person has in their life is a waste.
I feel you.
No experience. You may not understand why you're going through that experience now, and you're not supposed to, right?
Yeah.
But eventually you will understand, like, you know what? That's why I went through that experience. So
sometimes it's just one thing that you get out of that experience, and you just like makes sense.
Right.
All the years I spent there, it was just for this one moment, and now it all makes sense.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
Wow. That is good. That's good.
Yeah.
So hey, shout out to Nigerians out there.
Hey.
Okay. So back to the business. Okay. Tell me. So you're an health equity consultant. Tell us more about this role.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, I basically consult any and all people in health equity. Those are providers of those in the healthcare industry, and also those who are recipients of healthcare. So a lot of times people don't understand the difference between equality and equity, which is something that we talked about the other day. Yeah. So equality, I'll give you an example. Let's say, for instance, we have two people. So there's Lucky, there's myself. Equality in terms of healthcare is saying, okay, we're going to give both of these individuals the same thing. At the same time, what we have learned over time, you know, being that our country is culturally diverse, right? Lucky's needs may not necessarily be the same as my needs. Lucky is a man, I am female. Lucky may have a certain, you know, illness, but that illness may not necessarily be my illness. Not necessarily trying to speak that over your life. But, you know, just using it as an example, right? So what health equity does, it assesses, okay, who is Lucky? What is Lucky going through? Right? Okay, how does Lucky want to receive care? You know, all of those things come into play, and then I help that person to develop a regimen for them, right? Yeah. And then, you know, and again, I want to be very clear. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a public health doctor. So what I do is that I look at a particular health issue, and then I look at policies and regulations that are surrounding that health issue, so that by the time that person goes into the provider's office, that person knows what questions to specifically ask for their certain issue. Right? So health equity is basically saying, okay, we're not going to give these two people the same treatment because they require different things. So health equity is really assessing what is your individual need. Now, Earlier, I had talked about the difference between a medical doctor and a public health doctor. A medical doctor basically assesses an individual needs, and a public health doctor assesses issues for the masses. So you may be a bit confused because, I'm saying, okay, individual, I thought you were, mass. Okay, so here's the difference. There are certain illnesses, or what I would call health disparities, that masses of people experience. So, for example, masses of people of color do not have health insurance.
Yes.
Now, it's not to say that people who are, white don't have health insurance, but we know that in this country, a good, I wouldn't say majority, but a lot of people who are people of color don't have health insurance. And why is that? Well, when you look in this country, how do people acquire health insurance? Mostly they acquire it from their job.
Yeah.
Okay, but then when you look at the types of jobs that people of color have versus white individuals, a lot of them have either part-time jobs or jobs that don't offer health insurance to them for whatever reason. So that's where I come in to say, okay, you don't have health insurance, but these are the free services that are available to you based on your needs. Or you don't have health insurance, this is how we can help you to get health insurance, because a lot of people don't really want to recognize it, but healthcare, it's a business.
It's a business.
It's a business, and it's actually one of the main businesses in this country. So I basically help people in terms of understanding how to navigate through that to get the most optimum care that they need for their particular need at the time. So,
wow.
Very specific. But again, I didn't just fall into this. I really had to go through like a multitude of different routes to just even understand a common phenomenon, right? Because it is by design. It is by design where, people of color in this country, they do experience, lack of health insurance, or, like even with the situation, and this is getting a little political here, but, with the recent overturning of Roe versus Wade, right? People who are already marginalized are going to be even more affected by that sort of decision, right? And so, I'll just leave it at that because I don't want to make it seem like I'm speaking on behalf of Tufts. This is, Vanessa speaking personally. But, I basically help people help themselves, which goes back to, the 21, 22-year-old Vanessa when she was on Google and she was like, how to help people help themselves, how to advocate for yourself, how to instill patient empowerment for people who want care, but maybe they don't even know what to ask, how to ask it, right? Those, because there's no, where are you going to learn it? Are you going to learn it in public school? No. They're so busy focused on, passing tests, state tests and everything. And it's not to say that that's not good. It is, our system is, I'm sure that there's a purpose behind that, but it's just certain things in this country you are expected to advocate for yourself, but nobody actually teaches you how to advocate for yourself. So,
wow. Oh, that makes a lot of sense, man.
Yeah.
So, what is your business like? What can it offer to an immigrant? Or what is out there for an immigrant that is in the United States and trying to? Because speaking from personal experience, I still don't even know what's out there for me.
Right.
And sometimes these immigrants are like scared to go out there and ask.
Right.
Because of the times that we live in, so they just settle for whatever they find, and it gets to the point where now it's super bad, super late. Someone's sick and couldn't go to the hospital, and now it's like almost dying before now you kind of like go to the hospital and then realize that you had all these options available for you, but you never made use of any of them.
Right. So that's a loaded question. So I'll answer it in two parts. One, it depends on where you're physically located.
Yeah.
So I can't just really say, okay, well, this is available to you, because I don't know if you're in Mississippi or Massachusetts, that healthcare is like night and day. But the good thing is that we have different sources that would help us along the way. Honestly, I would just start off on Google and just assess, okay, what are free health services that are available to me? What are some questions that I need to ask, right? Start there. I would definitely say if you want to get into advocating for yourself, find out when they have town hall meetings, specifically when it talks about anything dealing with wellness of the community, and really just network, right? So I know I'm not answering your question directly, but it really, in this country, it depends on where you work, where you live, um, your health insurance or lack thereof.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, that's where my business comes in, where I can't actually say, okay, what this individual has access to. I would need to know all of that information beforehand to go ahead and help them to say, okay, well, this is the specific person you need to talk to. This is the specific services that you need to advocate for yourself on.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Because I was gonna ask you, how do you come in this picture? You get like, how do you come in this picture of helping? Like,
so basically what I do, so I do research.
Yes.
So I would then, like, let's say for instance, you were interested in acquiring my services. I'll do like a consulting, fee or conversation for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
In that 30 minutes or prior to then, I would have you tell me, okay, whether you're male or female, what's your location, are you an immigrant or not? Because those type of things, they come into play, right?
Yep.
Do you have insurance? If so, what kind of insurance do you have? Do you have Medicare or Medicaid? Because just being honest, remember, I go back to how I mentioned earlier, medical services in this country, it's a business, right? There are actually some providers who will not see those who have Medicare or Medicaid, or they don't have any insurance, right? Because they don't get, the full return that they want. So I ask all those questions, and then I will do what I would call a mini research beforehand to say, okay, this is what I found for you.
Yep.
These are the sorts of questions that you can ask your provider the next time you go. Or if you don't have a provider, I can assist you in getting in contact with someone who could act in the place of a provider to get you the services that you need. Because one thing that I'll never do is act as a medical doctor, because that's not my expertise. But what I do is I help I basically serve as their patient navigator through the system. Yeah.
I mean, you make it a lot easier for them to just go out there not knowing what the right places to go to. You tell them the right place to go to, the right questions to ask, to speak to. And, okay.
Yeah. And so I have to do research ahead of time and everything, because again, all of those things, being an immigrant, those things, they come into play, right? Because there are certain health services that are available to, those that are, citizens, as opposed to those that are not. So and again, it's by design. And the reason why, a service like mine is needed is because you don't really have a lot of people that are offering, the services that I do, but there's such a dire need, right? And then again, going back to me figuring out how do I market this, because, and we talked about this, when it comes to people wanting a house, everybody always wants a house. They can physically see a house. You don't really see equity until there is an illness or a situation that comes up, and then the doctor tells you, well, if you would have came to me, 6 months ago, or a couple of years ago, we could have gotten this situation under control. But there are so many services, so many preventative services that are out there, right? Like, let's say, for instance, a lot of times people don't really realize, but out of the illnesses in this country, 7 out of 10 are as a result of chronic illness. The reason why that's important to know is because chronic illness is preventable, right? When it comes to like obesity, diabetes, heart disease. Okay, so you need to know then, okay, well, where's the local gym that I can go to for a discounted rate or to go to for free? You know what I'm saying? So those are the sort of things that I help you out with. So, yeah.
These are like little things, but that go a long way.
Go a long way. Absolutely.
Go a long way. And that's why I think people don't look at this, because it's a little thing. You get right. People want to wait till it gets chronic. People want to wait till it gets big. And then now that's one day when they want a huge help. Right. But these are like little things that could help reduce something bigger in the future.
Right. I mean, like, for instance, there's no reason why in this country a person should get their leg amputated because they have diabetes. It's just,
how did they get to that level?
Right. How did you get to that level? Where was someone in place to say, okay, this is what you need to do? And then how did they assist you? Right? So, those sort of things that come into play that I help people out with. So, again, basically helping people to become more health literate than what they are. And a lot of times those people are those who have been historically marginalized.
God, wow. Because myself too, I have no knowledge of anything health. You get right. All I know is just I don't know, literally like I hardly even go to the hospital. Yeah, right. So when you speak like, oh, there are people out there, I'm like, yes, I'm one of them out there.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and hearing that there's a service like this makes me feel, oh wow. Because now I'm like, okay, sometimes people don't want to do the stress. People don't want to do the stress of going online to look for things. That's where even the personal trainer comes in. You get
Right. And it can be stressful because it's stressful to know that you need something, but you don't even know
know
what
where
to
to
ask.
start. Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right.
right. So that's the same thing as a personal trainer. I want to lose weight. Okay, can you help me? Now it saves me the stress of going online to look for a program, creating my own program, and someone just gives you the guideline. Okay, this is what I want you to do. Boom, boom, boom.
Right.
A lot easier, saves you time and money. Yeah. But like, why don't a lot of people know about this? You know,
Well,
consulting.
I'll be honest because it's fairly new.
Yeah.
And when I say fairly new, not just the services, but a lot of times in this country, people have to have an awareness first of like it being an actual issue
Yeah.
before services come out about it. And so this whole thing about equity talk, it has always been there, but I think it really sparked after the 2020 issue with George Floyd, and bringing to light how various people in this country, people specifically people of color, how they have encountered certain unfortunate circumstances,
yeah.
and a lot of those unfortunate circumstances are linked to their health. That's when you really start to see a push and a talk for health equity. Because remember before, when we talk in the civil rights movement, a lot of the civil rights movement of the 1960s or 50s and 60s, it mainly centered around equality.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
It was, we want the
Equal,
same books,
the same books,
as these kids. We want the same this and same that. And so what happened over time is we saw that, okay, it needs to go further.
It needs to go further.
Right. It's not just a situation of equality, but, and then and you also have to look at how our country was 50, 60, 100 years ago.
Yes.
A lot of our country, not to say that all of it, but it was more just black, white. Over time, America has become so much more culturally diverse to where that's why you need equity talk. For instance, and it's not just a race thing, but it's a cultural thing too. For example, you're a provider, and let's say, for instance, one of your patients has an illness, right? In some cultures, like let's say, for instance, that patient, she is a mother and she has grown children. You don't tell that patient that they're ill. You actually tell their children, or you tell someone that's related to them, and then that person that's related to them tells them their illness. Gotcha. But how are you supposed to know that? Because there's nowhere in the medical curriculum that talks about equity.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's, at first, the reason why people don't know, in answer to your question, is because this is fairly a new conversation that is becoming formal. Yeah. People have had their private talks, but now it's more, we're focusing on equity research. Yeah. But even if you look at, the research papers in the past, it has been, I would say the authors of research have been very homogeneous, in as much as the authors were mainly white and they were mainly male. Right, but we know that that's not the only representation of a group of people in this country. It is a representation of a group of people, but not all people in this country. So as we become more equitable in being representative of the people that we're serving, that is how you will see over time more and more of these type of businesses come up. But I just hope and pray that I'm one of the beginning ones of this conversation.
Yeah, man, I'm glad we're doing this. Like really, like the more I didn't even know it was this powerful, because now I'm seeing. I know people that have no clue of these things. You get it, right? They just run away from them, like run away, like because if they sick and they just stay at home and there's nothing to do. It's like I don't know what to do, man.
Right.
Yeah, and
how many times have we heard our relatives or heard our friends say, because I'm always advocating, people go to the doctor, practice preventive care before, things happen. Get screenings, get tests, get mammograms. And people are like, I know in my family, the common thing that I hear, I'm not going to the doctor. Why are you going to the doctor? Because every time I go to the doctor, it's always some bad news. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
But the thing is, you want to go so that in the event something happens, you can catch it early. You know, and I think too, it just doesn't speak to my passion, or maybe my passion is tied into my experience. So like, for example, my father's mother, so my paternal grandmother, her name was Dorothy. And I remember she got a late diagnosis of cancer.
Oh.
And she got it was 1994. So she got a late diagnosis of cancer in July. By that October, she was gone.
Oh my God.
So that's what we consider to be a late diagnosis. But had she been going to the doctor, participating in preventative health early, then there's no telling.
Even if it was the bad news,
exactly,
you would get it earlier and then work on
it. And we right, there could be some sort of, therapy that comes into play. But it was so late that they didn't even know what type of cancer it was. Yeah. Yeah, because they determine the type of cancer based on where it initially starts. So if it starts in the breast, then they identify that as breast cancer, right? But by the time that she got diagnosed, it was all over.
Oh.
Yeah. Wow. So, yeah.
It all links up. You get me, right? Mm-hmm. Now I'm hearing your late grandma's story.
Yeah.
I'm hearing how you moved to this location.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing how you worked with people from minor ethnicities, and now it's all making sense that everything was just planned out.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, I didn't plan it out. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, you did.
I just literally put one foot in front of the next, in front of the next, in front of the next. I heard this one saying. I know. Okay, so he's. Some people would consider him to be a secular artist, but one of my favorite rappers is Jay-Z.
Yeah.
And they asked him about his success, and he said one of the genius things that we did is that we didn't give up. And honestly, that's what it is.
That's what it is.
Like, life is not it's not a race, it's a marathon.
Yes.
And if you really, here I am going with one of my metaphors again. We could be two people, right? Mm-hmm. And you could be running faster than me, but if you stop, but I'm just walking the whole way, and I continue to walk the whole way, I will win the race.
You win the race, yeah.
Right. So it's like sometimes I think people are like, I need to do this, and everything. Right. No, focus more. Don't focus on the speed so much. Focus on the consistency. Consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a conversation I was having with Godson the other day. I'll be telling people, like, some people know what to do. Mm-hmm. They know where to go. Mm-hmm. But they just don't have that power of not giving up. Mm-hmm. And there are people that don't know where to go.
Yes.
But they got that power to not
That's
give
true.
up.
That's true. Well, it goes back to, again, too, you have to surround yourself with people who have good intentions for you. Because, like, for example, you can be a person, like you said, like, or I could be a person, I'll use myself. I really think I can sing, but I really can't. But if everyone I'm around and no one's telling me, like, hey, you may want to do something else, then I look silly. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I think those people that you're talking about, how, it's like they don't really have the discernment to know, hey, you need to go a different route. I sometimes question, like, who are their friends?
Who are their friends?
You know what I'm saying? Like, or when someone is looking busted up all the time, I'm like, who are your friends? Because somebody should care enough about you to say, hey, that dress doesn't fit.
But what if someone is telling them, but they just refuse to listen?
Well, then that's on them then. So then they have chosen to, live that life of being stubborn, because stubbornness can get you too. That's the thing, instinct.
Yeah.
I truly believe that if you open yourself up to, just being, and it's not to say that every opinion you have to adopt for yourself. But you also have to have the spirit of discernment. If 10 people are telling you a similar message or the same thing, it is worthy of at least looking into. You know what I'm saying? So if 10, 20, 30 people, don't get me wrong, you have all different types of people in this life. Yes. There are going to be some people who, like, it, no matter how much you tell them, they're going to do whatever it is they want to do. And there's nothing that other people can do about it, because, as much as we want to advise people, we can't control how they receive our conversation, and we can't control them. Half the time, we can't even honestly control our own emotions. So let alone trying to control, how someone else, takes the information that we give. But for those who, really want to be successful, one, you have to determine for yourself what success is for you. For you, right? Yeah. Because a lot of times, like, you may have, this is my frame of reference. If it occurs in my brain, for me to do it, even as an imagination, I have the capacity to do it. Now, it doesn't mean that I will pursue it, but I at least know that I have the capacity to do it. So you have to be somewhat receptive, but also keep a balance of being self-aware of where you are. Because just because, you know, you have to understand that you may go out for something and it may not work right then and there. But a delay is not a denial.
Yeah.
Everything, you know, there's so, people don't really realize, but there's something to be said for things that occur in a timely manner, but they also have to be in alignment. A lot of people don't talk about alignment and why that's so important. For example, children are a blessing, right? But if they're born prematurely, there can be complications. And I'm not trying to trigger anyone who may have gone through a circumstance like this. So, you know, I definitely, you know, my heart is with you and everything. But, you know, just using that as an analogy, right? You know, that baby should come to full term, or at least scientists, you know, OB-GYNs have determined, medical doctors have determined, okay, once that baby is at 9 months, then that's a safe delivery. But if that baby comes at 4 months or at 5 months, so that's what I mean when I say timing, right? And again, that's why you also have to pray for capacity. You have to pray that, okay, once, or let me not say have to, because I tend to, when I'm saying you, sometimes I'm really talking about myself, but I'm giving you my experience. Whenever it comes to something or an occurrence or a situation to where I'm called to move to a different level, I not only pray for that thing to occur, but I also pray that by the time I receive it, I have the capacity to receive it so that I'm able to maintain it. Because if I'm able to maintain it, then my idea in my head is that I will expand. And that's what I want. Everybody doesn't want to expand, and that's okay.
It's okay.
You see what I'm saying? Like, because let me be very clear. Like, people are like, well, how does she know that I want to expand? I don't. Like, some people are okay with, like,
Whatever
this is what I know. Wherever I am, I want to keep a consistent basis. And at the end of the day, who am I to, you know, speak against that, because my journey is not their journey, right? But I'm talking about people who want to expand. You know, capacity is a really, really important, you know, thing to consider. And then also mentors. You know, I'm a mentor, but I also have several different mentors, right? Because no one person can do it all. You can be a genius, but no one person can do it all. That's overwhelming, right? You know, they're going to be, you know, let's say, for instance, you're the mastermind or you're the visionary behind something. Someone else has to be the finance person. Someone else has to be, you know, handle the logistics. Someone else has to be, you know, the face or the communicator to say, hey, you know, this is why you want, or you want our services, you know. So you just have to, again, but that goes back to doing a SWOT analysis of yourself. Because whatever weaknesses that you have, then what you can do, you can get people, and you can get either mentors, or what you can do, you can hire people or surround yourself with people who make up those very things that you lack.
You think, so, you know, talking about the SWOT analysis, do you spend more time working on your weaknesses, like, or would you double down on your strength or work on your weaknesses?
It depends on what situation I'm in. Sometimes I have made the mistake where I focus on my weaknesses too much, so that's when I can kind of get a little sad. But, you know, if I am called to honestly, like, deliver really quickly, then I think, like, I don't have time to focus on my weaknesses. So I'm like, okay, if I'm called to deliver something by the end of the week, okay, what do I know that I absolutely can do, right? And then I focus on my strengths. So I always focus on my strengths when it's time for me to perform. When there's downtime, that's when I focus on my weaknesses. Because then I don't feel pressured to, oh, should I have this weakness, but then this is due. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? You know, so I'm like, okay, well, all right, well, this is due tomorrow, so I can't make up my weaknesses in a day. But with my weaknesses, I usually, you know, whenever I have some downtime and when nobody's looking for me to perform, that's when I focus on my weaknesses. Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Okay, so we spoke about having a mentor. Like, how does one get a mentor?
Ask, network. Even if, like, here's the thing, because I know I am the type of person, or I was the type of person where I was very shy.
Yeah.
I really didn't know how to talk to people.
Yeah.
But honestly, even things like this, like just having a conversation, as much as we think that we're very different, we have a lot of similarities.
That is true.
And so I would just say, like, get mentors at your church. If you don't go to church, get mentors at your school, on your job. Go to different events, free or not free. When you go to a different event, have like an internal goal that you want. Even if it's for every event that you go to, you make sure to stay in communication and exchange numbers with one person, because you just never know. You may end up talking to that one person and communicating with that one person, and then they may link you up with the next person, and that next person, you may be closer to the next person who wasn't even at that event more than you were with the person who was there. So there is no one way to network. People, regardless of their race, their age, they gravitate towards people and situations that make them feel warm.
Gotcha.
No matter what. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what I do. I try to make people feel warm. I try to be warm to other people. But also, I would say this at the same token, because you don't want to overwhelm yourself. And I'm speaking for those of you all that will eventually become mentors. It's not good spiritual hygiene to allow everyone to have access to you. And the reason why I say that is because oftentimes we as, believers or Christians, which I am one, we have this idea that, okay, for everybody that asks for my help, I need to be available. No, you're called to be kind to everyone, but you really have to assess, am I called to this person? And if I am called to this person, to what degree? Because I may be called to have a deeper relationship with this person as opposed to that person. So it's really just following your instinct to just see, okay, what do I already have on my plate? What is this person asking of me? What can I offer this person? And then also, what can this person offer me? And that's not selfish, right? You always want to engage in relationships to where they're balanced. And what I mean when I say they're balanced, you're getting something out of it, they're getting something out of it too. Sometimes that's money, but it's not necessarily just money. Sometimes it's networking. Sometimes it's just being around good energy, right? Because I'm always talking about, like, I love being around people who do something totally different than what I do, right? Like, real estate, or someone who's in acrobatics, right? And you're like, Vanessa, how do you have like all these random friends? But then when you get my friends together, you're like, oh, I understand. Because they're always trying to self-improve at whatever they do. That's the key. That's who I surround myself with. And I mean, I've gotten so in tune with my intuition, with my discernment, that if there's a gut feeling to say there's something off about this person, just halt. I don't even have to explain to myself. It's just I halt, right? And if it's something, and likewise, if it's something that's just something that's warm about this person, I don't really know this person, but they just seem like a very good-hearted, good-natured person. I want to get to know more about this person. I don't know them, but I want to get to know more about them. Then I will pursue just that. I used to be the type of person to where I would have this gut feeling about someone, but to me, I had to rationalize, and tell myself, well, this person, they didn't really do anything wrong, but I just feel off. Well, I'll continue to get to know them because I really can't rationalize why I don't feel, comfortable. But then later on, a situation will happen, and I'm like, that's it. That's why. That's why I didn't feel comfortable. So, yeah.
Quick question. So are you the one that goes by feeling, or you follow your mind, that little voice in your head? What do you pick, feelings or?
I would say both. You have to know when to use both. Like, for instance, and I'm using you as an example, not that this is the case with you, But sometimes I could just be talking to you, and the way my instinct works is just like, stop talking. And I'm like, wait, what? It's like two people are inside of me like, why should I stop talking? But okay, I'll stop talking, right? And in that instance, it's a feeling, but it's a feeling that just came out of nowhere. And I'm like, okay, if this feeling came out of nowhere, there's a reason for this feeling, right? But then there are times where, I'm just moody that day. And I'm like, Vanessa, do not make any business decisions when you are in this type of mood. Yeah. Don't send this email when you have this attitude. Calm down,
What a day.
Let a day pass, let some hours pass, go for a walk, go get some ice cream, go work out, do whatever you have to do, and then make sure you answer in a logical way. Yes. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I do both. I go by feelings and I go by mind, depending on what the situation is.
Makes sense. Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Interesting. So, I enjoy this conversation. Mm-hmm. Literally, I'm glad you said yes. I'm glad you followed your God to come out here and do this podcast, because you're saying a lot more than I actually thought you were. You're giving this is so, not just for my listeners too, but for me to for me to this is therapeutic, and just hearing you speak all this powerful words, I'm like, man, Vanessa is loaded. She can go all day. And at first, I didn't think, because at first you were like this. You always like to keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
But just hearing you speak, I'm like, damn, she goes from this field to this field.
I do. I'm all over the place. Sorry.
You're loaded, and you just need somewhere to just. Pour it out, right? So I'm really like, wow. So it's just like you talked about that connection we had, networking, and it led to this conversation. And someone listening to this podcast definitely will learn something out of this that will apply to their life. And the cycle just keeps repeating itself. So it's really amazing. And that brings my next question: what drives you in life? You've had your own shares of challenges and all that, but what still keeps you going?
What keeps me going is the effort of my ancestors. Gotcha.
Wow.
There's a lot that they've had to endure. A lot of humiliation that they have had to endure for the very life that I'm living. A life that I'm living that they never got a chance to see.
Yeah.
So that's what keeps me going. Also, with, the legacy that I want to leave behind. I would love to have little versions of me, as well as my husband to be, who, have little versions of us running around, and them to be better versions of myself, right? Definitely, children that will follow their own path, but hopefully, instill the principles that myself and my future husband, we would instill in them. So that is what keeps me going. And I would say that from future family perspective, but also what keeps me going is understanding that, where I come from. I come from Mississippi. I come from not just the South, but the deep South. And, coming from where I came from, a lot of people don't get to make it to where I am.
Gotcha.
And I always try to, keep that sort of perspective and not have an attitude of being proud or being, get caught up in my ego. Because actually, okay, here's another book. There's a book called Ego is the Enemy.
Read it.
Oh my, you read it?
Right on holiday. I love these books.
It's so good. I'm telling you. This is the reason. Okay,
The Obstacle is the Way. Have you read The Obstacle is the Way?
No.
Still by him. Obstacle is the Way.
I'm telling you, shout out, Lucky, low key, no cap. Y'all got a good host. Because the thing about it is, it's a lot of people that talk the talk. I'm telling you, I'm not even around this dude every day. I'm literally around him once a week, and that's church. And he's always has some sort of self-help book or whatever. And I love the fact that you train yourself, because what you're doing is that you're equipping yourself, and when you equip yourself, it shows. But anyways, that's a sidebar. Back to your question, which was what keeps you going. I would say that future family, but also just knowing where I came from. And wanting to see how God is going to shine his light in me. Knowing that, so many people from my home, they're like, wow, you made it. Yes. And I'm over here I made it. And I'm still going.
Yeah.
I'm still going. And so, like, for me, I'm like, okay, God, I want to see how far you're going to take this. I want to see how far you're going to go with this. So that's what keeps me going.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Damn, those are like powerful reasons. First, your past, your ancestors, what they did, and then your future, your kids and husband. And then now it's like, you just want to see the end of all this. You get it, right?
Yeah.
And just having that, knowing that final destination is a beautiful. You already have that vision, up here, and just working with that, just keeps you going. That is powerful.
Yeah, I remember when I was like 20. Okay, I'll say two more things before I guess we wrap it up. But I remember when I was 21, 22,
Yes.
and I think I was like talking to one of my friends, and he brought it up the other day actually. He's married, has kids and all that or whatever. But it was funny because he's like, V, do you remember what you told me like over 10 years ago? And I was like, no. And he was like, he was like, there was something where he was jinxing me, or he was like basically playing and saying like, you're not going to do that.
Yeah.
And he said, V, you told me, he said, you told me either I'll see you at the top or I'll wave at you from the top. And he was like, and you actually did that. And like and basically what he was communicating was that you always knew where you were going to be. Because you always said either I'll see you at the top, meaning I'm at the top with you, or even if you're at the bottom, I'm waving at you from the top. And so I think in words, manifestation is real.
It's real.
It's real. There is power and death in the tongue. And the thing about it is, for those of you all that are struggling with believing in yourself, knowing what direction you're going to go, even if you think it, every time you write what it is you want to accomplish, and you write it down as if you already have it. Like even to this day, and like this is getting a little personal, but I always write about my children. Wow. Haven't even met them yet, really? But I always write. I write, thank you, God, for allowing my children to be receptive to your word. I don't even have children, never have been pregnant before or anything. But I write about my children.
Yeah.
I write about my husband. I'm not going to tell y'all about my husband.
Okay.
But
she'll tell me later.
But I write about those things.
Wow.
I even like as a 34-year-old Vanessa, I'm writing to the 64-year-old Vanessa already.
Are you serious?
I'm so proud of you. Look at what you have accomplished.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, now this is something I really want to, because I am not good at writing.
Okay.
I want to start, so much passion, I want to write stuff, I write stuff, okay? Because of how much I want to write, I always keep a pen and paper around me to just write. But whenever I pick something to write, I don't even know what to write. It's like, what should I write?
Yeah.
So that kind of makes me not to write. You get it, right? But I always keep a pen and a paper around me, but it's like, okay, what do I write? So now you've spoken about, you write stuff about your kids and manifestation and bringing it to pass. I don't know, what can you advise someone like me, just to help me get started? Even if you're just writing a line or something
it doesn't even have to be a line. It could just be words. Write down the things you enjoy. So if you enjoy love, write down love. If you enjoy workout, and these words, they don't have to make sense.
Makes sense, yeah.
They don't even have to be related to each other. Like how I started writing, I wrote about the things that I enjoy. I'm supposed to know this verse, but there's a verse in the Bible where it talks about, think on these things. Everything that is pleasurable, think on these things. Yeah. So I think on the things that I like.
Yes.
I like flowers, love, getting nails done. Again, these are things that are not really relation to each other, but these are things that I like. And so, even times where I feel down, and this is literally how my journal is, depending on what has gone on that day, I may write a 5-page entry.
Wow.
But then I may write, if I'm going through something, the next day or one day, it's a simpler entry. I'm over this shit. Literally, that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? Because that's my mood for that day. But it's such a rewarding experience to go back and look and see what you wrote, because then it takes you back to where you were in that season. Because sometimes we can tend to, we're always on the go, we're always hustling, so many things in life that are constantly changing, that sometimes we forget. Like, remember when you were in that season? Remember how difficult it was?
Yeah.
And then look at all of what you're handling now.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
And so it's rewarding for me to go back and look at how much you've grown. So I would say, for people who are struggling to write, just write about the things that you enjoy, or write about the things that you don't want, and then just literally put the words in front. I rebuke this. Now I'm the type of writer to where I try to focus more so on what I want, as opposed to what I don't want, because I have seen very close people in my life who, I've always asked them, like, what do you want? And they always say what they don't want. And as a result of them saying what they don't want, they have never acquired what they actually do want. So I have made a rule of thumb to more so focus on, what I want. Because once you know what you want, everything else is irrelevant.
Yes.
It's irrelevant. Yeah. Like, if I know I don't want this, then I don't have any attachment.
Yes. I get what you're saying. Don't focus on your don'ts. Yes, I see where you're coming from. So myself, like, a few weeks ago, there was this book I was reading, and I wrote something on top of it, like, because I write, like, when it just pops up, I just pick up whatever and write. It doesn't have to be on a book, a specific book that I write my thoughts. I just write them on anywhere. That's why I always keep a pen beside me. And 2 weeks ago, I just came across something that I wrote, like, reading this book, a business idea that came to me, and I went back to that idea, and I just, like, I remember that day. I remember, like right now, I'm getting closer to that journey. You get, right? But just because I wrote those ideas down, it brought back that fire that I had lost before. Like, just reading those, I was like, oh my God, I need to go back to this idea again. Now I started working on it. So, like I get what you say, like, when you write something and how it affects you in the future, it's very powerful.
Yeah. And I mean, absolutely. And the thing about it is, because sometimes what you want today may be different than what you want tomorrow or the next day. And or you may find that you want to elaborate more. Like, I remember when I was first writing about my children, I just wanted them to be good human beings. But, to be a good human being, that's very general. Now I specifically write, I want them to have discernment. I want them to have the ability to say no to things that may threaten their destiny. You know what I'm saying? So over time, my thoughts, my words, they have become more specific based on my own journey, right? And, like, as their mother, and I even, honestly, and most people are like, they kind of get like they're taken aback when I tell them that I write about my children, but I even write about the grandchildren that I'll never meet. So, like, literally, like, I'm very intentional. I write about, like, my 10th generation, like, grandchildren that I know I will never meet, but I am still speaking over their life.
Wow, that's powerful. So when is the book coming out? You gotta write a book. You can't tell me with all this writing you haven't thought about writing a book or something. So,
I have actually thought about writing a book. Let us know,
so we would.
I was about to say, I have thought about it, but not in this season. I still feel as though I have more to experience before I write it.
Okay.
But yeah, I definitely, sometimes I even amaze myself. But again, it's literally, I did not plan this. Yes. I literally was just putting one foot in front of the next, in front of the next, in front of the next. And I think the thing that that really helped me to even, spark that interest in me writing over my children is I remember as an adult, I saw, because I'm the first child. So I have 2 other siblings, my sister and my brother. And I remember, the first one is always the sort of guinea pig, but then also the parents, they do, they're just so excited about the first one. And so I came across a book that my mom and my dad had created for me. And, my mom, she was into sewing at the time, so she actually sewed a book. Like, the book is actually made out of cloth. And so the book, it's a green and white book, and it has the letter V for Vanessa. And so, I go through this book, and I'm looking at all of these baby pictures, and then there was something that was so precious to me that stood out. And it was basically, they were writing over my life. My mom, she wrote, things about me and my dad wrote things about me. And what was funny is the reason why I still remember it, because I was like, wow, you just never know who's writing over your life. And that's the thing, that's good or bad. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I want to offer my protection to my grandchildren before anyone even meets them. Yeah, they already have that covering over them.
That's the covering that's covering most of us even till date. What our grandparents have, it's either covering in a positive or a negative.
Negative, right, right. So the thing is that what's very interesting with my mom, and I think it's just so precious. My mom, she more spoke to the character that she wanted me to have. Gotcha. My dad more so spoke on the accomplishments that he wanted me to have. Right. And when I looked at him, I'm like, wow, they never told me about this book, but I've actually accomplished a lot what they wanted. Wow. So I was like, manifestation is very real. And, we have no control over who our children will meet, who they may become, but we can do our very best to give them the covering, whether we meet them, or not. And when I say our children, I'm not just speaking of my physical children, like that will come right after me. But again, like, the children that I have yet to meet, they may not know my name, but they'll have my covering, and that's good enough for me.
Oh, wow. That's dope. It's something I started doing like a few weeks ago. I listened to L. Nightingale, and he was talking about writing stuff down and goals. Yeah. Usually I write goals and just stick it in the wall. But I had this part where he said, write it and put it in your pocket.
Absolutely.
And move around with it.
Absolutely.
Feel it, like, And I remember I wrote this specific goal. The week I tried it, like, I had it in my pocket, and within a few days I achieved that goal. It was like, whoa.
And that's the thing, like, again, because when you're writing it, you're speaking over your life, and no one has greater power of speaking over your life than you. The only other being is God. I feel like is God Himself.
God himself, yeah.
But and that's the thing. What's the verse? What two people can walk together except they agree?
Yes.
I forgot the verse. And I'm not, and forgive me for those that are like, okay. Bible people out there. Yep. But like, what that's basically saying is that in order for people to walk together, they have to agree.
Yeah, I agree.
So if you are writing over your life and God already wants goodness for your life,
and it matches together,
it has to come to pass. Now, the way He works may be different than what you think, but the actual success and what you're going to achieve, like, you're going to have a prosperous life.
Yes.
You're going, you have to.
Wow.
So, but yeah, again, I'm not even just speaking from. I feel like I came on this podcast because it was like, okay, speak from your business, but as you can see, I'm speaking from a business perspective, professor, child of God perspective. Like, these are all different parts. These are different parts of me. So,
and this is what this podcast is for. It's not just for one section. You get it, right? It's everything: spiritual, financial, physical, like everything put together that makes you a whole human. That's what it covers. So I really love you taking your time to go outside of the conversation, go personal, share your stories about. I know someone. There's no way, like, I am definitely leaving this conversation and going to write about my kids. And if you have not said it, I didn't know someone did. I didn't even know people do that. Like, you can't write. So, like, I'm just like, can we just have this conversation?
Look, I'm over here having to be like, okay, let me go ahead and get that recording.
It is powerful. My last question is, so when you write the stuff, do you write them down in a specific book, like your journal? Do you have one book, or you just...
So
my question, I write everywhere. I don't have one book.
So when I was first, I'm going to be honest, when I first got into journal writing, sometimes I would write in my journal, but sometimes I would write in other places. I would write them, especially like if I didn't have my journal, I would write them in my notes on my phone. But I try to solely write in my journal to keep track. And I have this weird thing about me, like, I love leather journals. So like, I've kind of gotten bougie to where, like, if it's not a leather journal, I don't want to write in it. But I always make sure that I finish one journal before the next, but I save all of my journals.
Wow.
All of them. So I have journals from years ago. And so for me, that's going to be something that I pass on. Like, that's, like, I've even said that, you know, I think it's a little too early to write my will, but in my will, I will say, keep these in the family. Yeah. So that, again, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, my great-great-great-great-grandchildren can actually see this is the experience of our grandmother when she was in her youth. These are the frustrations, the daily frustrations that she had, you know, because I'll be honest, like, you know, I mean, as much as I want to present myself as like, oh, I'm this perfect Christian, I'm not. I have written all types of frustrations and curse words in that journal because I'm